Se llama present tense of AR verbs, and you'll see why here in un segundo. Ok, pero para empezar, vamos a conocer la idea en un contexto. ¿Qué hace la artista? La artista dibuja, no? So what's this question asking probably? ¿Qué means what? So what is the artist doing? And the artist is what? Drawing, exactly. So based on our verb dibuja, we know what she's doing. Our verb tells us what she's doing, and the verb to draw is dibujar, and here we have la artista dibuja. Or on your paper it says el artista. Y tú dibujas. So tú is asking who? You, right? Y tú. And now I'm asking you this. ¿Y tú dibujas? What am I asking you? Do you draw? Right, exactly. So to go back to those questions that we talked about on Wednesday, we know this is a question because why? What tells us that this is a question? The question marks, right, exactly. This upside down question mark. Do we have this in English? No, because why? In English, the question would be, do you draw, right? But in Spanish, we don't have that concept of do, so that's why we have that upside down question mark. ¿Y tú dibujas? And so what's different about dibujas, do you draw, and sí, yo dibujo? What do you notice is different? Are we talking about drawing? Yeah, we're still talking about drawing. In the previous example, the artist was drawing. We're still talking about drawing, but what's changed? The ending, the conjugation, that's the fancy term for when the ending of the verb changes. And so from this point forward, for the next 2 years of your life, every time we see each other pretty much, we're going to be doing this to verbs. We're going to be conjugating, conjugating, conjugating. And if you've taken Spanish before, who's taken Spanish before ever, you're familiar with this. But if you haven't, this is completely new. This concept is completely new. In Spanish and every Romance language, so maybe you've taken French or Italian or Portuguese or even Romanian, verb endings change, and that's called conjugation. And this is hard, isn't it? And we've talked about this with ser, soy, eres, es, somos, soy, son, and we talked about it with estar, estoy, estás, está, estamos, estáis, están. Those are verb conjugations. But now, on page 38, we have all of these verbs. And what do all of these verbs have in common? Bailar, buscar, caminar, cantar, comprar. What sound do you keep hearing over and over again? R, R, R. AR, AR, AR. They're all classified together, not because of what they mean, but because they're how they're spelled. They all end with what two letters? AR, which is why this presentation is called AR verbs. Okay? So now let's take a look at some more examples and how endings on verbs can change to tell us who is doing the action. Por ejemplo, aquí, ¿qué hacen los estudiantes? Ellos preparan una presentación para la clase de historia. So what's this question asking again? ¿Qué hacen los estudiantes? Doing, right, exactly, excelente. So what are they doing? So we're not even talking about this verb hacer, but we use it so much in Spanish, it's impossible not to include it. What are they doing? Preparing a presentation. Excelente. Salud. Preparing. Who's preparing? They are the students. So here we have lots going on. Ellos is our pronoun used to refer to los estudiantes, right? But instead of rewriting los estudiantes, we replace it with a word they. Ellos. And so what happened to our verb? What letters does it end with? A-N, an. Exactly, like the verb están, right? Ellos están en la clase de español, or ustedes están en la clase de español. It's another AR verb, and when we're talking about them, it ends with the letter N. Otro ejemplo. ¿Y tú ¿Preparas presentaciones? ¿Sí o no? Yo sí. Yo preparo presentaciones todos los días. ¿Y tú? ¿Ustedes? ¿Sí o no? Sí, más o menos. Depende de la clase. ¿En qué clase preparan una presentación? ¿En la clase de español? No. ¿En la clase de historia? No, no presentación. ¿En la clase de psicología preparas una presentación, Felipa? ¿En la clase de psicología preparas una presentación? Sí, muy bien, excelente. So, Felipa diría, yo preparo una presentación, ¿no? En la clase de español, yo todos los días, yo uso PowerPoint siempre, ¿no? So, yo preparo. What's happening here with the verb? Ending in O, because I'm talking about who? Myself. Yo. So, yo ends in O. Yo preparo. ¿Qué hace el profesor de matemáticas? Él explica los números en clase. So, él explica. What does he do? He explains, right, exactly. He explica. Our verb ends in what letter? An A, because why? The el profesor, he. El profesor de matemáticas. I could rewrite that whole thing, but it's kind of long and we know who we're talking about, so just use el. Sí. Tengo una pregunta, right? Not. Well, you know the language ladder, the list of phrases you use in class. Why would you ask that question? Why does it end in A if it's a guy? Does anybody know why? Because that question is very important because many students wonder the same thing. And many students accidentally change the ending of their verbs, and the key word is verb here, because they think, well, O's are used for guys and A's are used for girls. And in the previous example, I said, and on your paper it says, yo preparo, or yo dibujo. So maybe that'll help. Whoops, that's the wrong spot. Preparo and dibujo. When I say yo dibujo or yo preparo, what am I saying? Yo dibujo, yo preparo. I prepare. I draw. So the O tells us who's the subject? I, right? When we hear that sound O, it's I. But when we hear with AR verbs, it could mean he or she or you formal or it. Because, and here's the answer to your question, because nouns have gender and adjectives have gender, but verbs don't have gender. Never, ever, ever. So our verb doesn't tell us the gender of who or what is doing the action. And I am so glad, Margarita, you asked that question, because a ton of students, regardless in any class I've ever taught, have that same question. And some don't always ask, and then they get it wrong on the test because they would write el explico, but el explico is wrong because explico would mean who's doing the action. If I say explico, I'm talking about yo, right? Because why? Verbs don't have what? Gender. They can be singular, they can be plural, but they don't have gender. Buena pregunta. Okay, y tú, explicas los números. No, yo no explico los números porque soy profesora de español. Y no me gustan las matemáticas. Presento los números, pero no explico los números, no? Explicas, when you hear that AS, it's not because the verb is plural. It's because when we hear the S on the end of a verb, I'm asking who? You. To is with an S. So that's another thing to point out, is that verbs aren't plural with the letter S, like nouns and adjectives and articles are plural with the letter S. The letter S on a verb means I'm talking to you. For example, como estás, right? Or como te llamas. When you hear estás or llamas, you know the question is for you. Okay, y yo no explico. Yo. Even though I'm a girl, I use explico because why? Because verbs don't have gender, right? Because yo is the subject. ¿Y qué hace la familia? Ellos viajan a Puerto Rico. Ellos viajan. So what are they doing here? What does viajan mean? They're what? Traveling. Right, exactly. Viajar is a new verb in our book. Aquí está, to travel. Ellos viajan a Puerto Rico. So verbs aren't plural with the letter S. Verbs are actually plural with the letter N. Because this is a group of people. Ellos, no? And our tells us who's doing the action. ¿Y tú viajas? Sí, mi familia y yo viajamos. Eso es Carlitos cuando era más pequeño. Mi familia y yo. So here's another plural form of the verb. Amos tells us who's doing the action. When I say mi familia y yo, who am I talking about? My family and I, or we, exactly. So I could substitute mi familia y yo with nosotros, right? Nosotros viajamos. Nosotros viajamos. Okay? So just to know, verbs in Spanish have two parts. And this is the term conjugation that Juliana said. Verbs in Spanish have two parts. They have an ending right here at the end. So on your paper, circle the ending so you know what I'm talking about, and maybe you could draw like an arrow to it. Almost is our ending. And then we have a stem. And this goes for really all Romance languages. Endings and stems. And those words are technical terms, but they're really important to know what I'm talking about when I say the end of a verb. Or, we're going to learn in a couple chapters, the stem of the verb. Stems that change. Salud. Okay. So, verbs have the ending, and the ending tells us who is doing the action. Just like I said, when I say viajo, and you hear that O, you know I'm talking about myself. But if I say viajamos, then you know you're included. Okay, so the ending, or viajas, you, or viajan, they, those sounds and those endings and that spelling tells us too. But the stem is the vocab part. That tells us what we're talking about. Because I could put O on any verb, and the stem of the verb that I'm using, whether it's dibujar, or explicar, or viajar, that's the vocab part, okay? So in the next examples, we're going to identify stems and endings. What's the stem and what's the ending? We're going to underline the stem and circle the ending. So just in English, how would you spell out, or let's start with the ending. What's our ending of this verb? AS, right, exactly. Circle the ending, which means this is our stem. Okay? Now do the rest on your own. Okay, so otro verbo. Ellos preparan una presentación. What's the ending? And. So our stem is prepar. And careful with this verb. Careful with this one. Because sometimes students get thrown off because the infinitive, which is the term for the most basic form of the verb, is preparar. And when you take your chapter 2 test, I can't emphasize enough, especially in this class, highly recommend to write your stems first before you even focus on plugging in your endings. Why? Because verbs like this, preparar, would be a very easy word to misspell. Sometimes students make spelling errors in any class because they bypass the stem, focus on the ending, and make errors in the spelling of their stem. So before you even conjugate any verbs on your test, you can just write out your stems without even thinking about what the answer is to make sure you don't spell correctly. Okay, explica. What's our ending? A, right? So our ending is explic. That one's not too tricky to spell. It's very phonetic. Explica. What about viajamos? What's our ending? Amos, right. So our stem is viaje. And this tells us what again? Amos tells us what? What's the point of an ending in Spanish? An ending of a verb tells us who's doing the action. And when you hear amos, what does that mean? We, exactly. ¿Cómo estamos? How are we doing today? ¿Cómo estamos? We're good. Estamos bien. Okay, so what do you have to do? You have to memorize, and I repeat, memorize these endings. And you will, because there's no escape. For the next 2 years of your life, this is what we're going to be doing. But it's fundamental that you really nail these down in the beginning, because obviously we're going to learn in Spanish how to speak beyond the present tense, beyond saying, hola, yo hablo español. We want to be able to learn, like in 201, my students on Wednesday took a test on the past tense. How to say I spoke Spanish yesterday, or I didn't do my homework, or whatever. So it's really important that you memorize these first. And this is how you memorize them. I keep mentioning Quizlet because that's the kind of learner I was. Flashcards and Quizlet's a great resource. And I keep telling you that, or I recommend that you use Quizlet, not just for vocab, but also for grammar. And all you have to do is title, Chapter 2, Aventuras, AR verbs. Okay? And this is how you make your flashcards. On one side, first you could write yo, and on the other side you would write oh. Okay? So that would be one set. You might want to put like AR verb forms. And then because, this already might be on Quizlet, so you might want to check. You could make another set of cards just for the vocabulary. Like on page 38, all these verbs, you want to know what they mean because we're going to be using them. So on one side of the flashcard, and this is what I recommend to do, I would write, I would just focus on the to form because the to form's good. Practice. You look for, and on the other side, buscas. That's what you would put on your other side. You don't want to write buscar because you're very rarely going to use that verb that way. You're going to be conjugating or using that verb with an ending on it to state who's looking for something or who's, for example, resting. Tú descansas or tú escuchas, no? And you could even make it more complete if you go to the Foreign Language Tutoring Lab and finish it and make it into a sentence if you like. So that's our AR verb endings. And now let's practice identifying what's going on here. So who's doing the action here? Based on this ending, who's doing the action? Tú, right? So en español, por favor, tú, no? ¿Preparan? Who's the subject? Ellos or ustedes? No. Explica. He or she, él or ella, or usted. Muy bien. Nosotros. Excelente, mi familia. Okay, muy bien.